But I digress. And we're back.
Nice to be back.
It's been so long.
It's been time after time.
And we just happen to be wearing the same outfits.
When you look and you none,
I thought about that.
Find me.
I was like, are people going to notice that sometimes we wear the same outfits 2 episodes in a row?
Listen.
We're going to pull back the curtain, you guys. Sometimes
we will wear.
We do 2 episodes in one day.
Correct.
What?
It's amazing.
I know. It's a magic
Fantastico.
trick.
Increíble.
Well, I think today in particular makes sense because we set out to talk about life after death.
Meaning what happens to our bodies and our souls once
because this is what happens.
The 120 years is up in this planet. And there had to be this whole background that we talked about. What is a body and what is a soul? And we made a complete detour and
but
differentiation.
You know what? Really great conversation.
That we needed to give a whole understanding to what is a body and what is a soul.
We laid the foundation.
We had
to do that.
And that became a whole episode unto its own.
I mean, look, just the idea of discussing life after death, we had to set some sort of foundation for such a topic. I mean, this is the topic that this is what everyone is interested in.
Correct.
Right? What happens after you die? It's like the biggest mystery. Of course, we had to get there. I still don't understand how the body versus consciousness, body versus soul is going to get to death.
We're going to get there.
We're going to find that out today.
So where did we leave off? We left off that there was Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge of good and bad.
Before they ate from the tree of life.
Before they ate from the tree of life. And basically now God says to them, you made a decision that you chose to live a life where you're very body conscious over your soul. So you're going to have to now make decisions where your base nature of your body is going to be front and center over what your soul is telling you what's right. So that's where we left off. Meaning, for an example, our soul wants to get up, wants to conquer the day, wants connection.
Bueno.
The body wants the Kinder Bueno.
The body wants the Kinder Bueno. I mean, honestly, I like Kinder Buenos so much that I think my soul wants them too. I experience a euphoric connection with the universe itself when I eat Kinder Buenos.
But your body would want 20 Kinder Buenos all at once.
20? That's not enough. I would eat my way out of a pool of Kinder Buenos.
Your soul tells you you're going to die if you eat
but my body's like, I need to get to the other side of this pool.
So basically,
okay, so how does this fit into death and life?
So back to Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve were now, we say, mita keneged mita, measure for measure. They were now, it's a harsh word, but they were now going to have a repercussion for their actions.
Consequences.
We don't call it consequences. Don't call it a punishment, but the snake had consequences. The woman, Eve, had consequences, and the man also had consequences.
Wait a minute. What happened to the snake? Is that why snakes don't have legs? God was like, you know what? Because you did that, I'm taking your legs away.
Taking your legs away.
Wait, is that true?
It is true.
That's true?
That's true.
Snakes lost their legs because of the tree.
And you're going to have to slither and be at the heel of everybody, and you're going to get dirt kicked into your face, and you might get stepped on. And that is the punishment or the consequence of the snake, is that he's not going to be a respectable entity in this world. So he has to slither.
So prior to that, were snakes upright?
Upright, standing.
On their did they have arms? Do we know? What
does
the Torah say about snakes and their arms?
Don't know, but they were upright, and they lost their legs, and they were now going to be slithering.
Wow.
And they were going to have to bite the heel, and the heel is the lowest part of a human being's body, which is considered in a lot of ways the dirtiest, the least significant, not the head. And the snake.
Weird though, because Achilles' heel is very important.
Achilles' heel, but that's the thing that usually trips you up in life.
Is your Achilles' heel?
Yeah.
Well, it's your weakness.
It's your weakness.
Right. The heel.
The heel.
So the snake lost its legs because of that.
Correct.
Wow.
And
bad move. Wrong move, snake.
Here's this. Now this could be a whole 45-minute discussion about the woman and what her consequence was.
Okay, let's table that. Let's focus.
No. We're gonna delve into it.
Okay, we gotta lay the foundation. All right, I guess we're gonna talk about life after death in the next episode.
We'll see what happens. The woman.
I feel like we need a woman representative to actually speak about the woman.
It's true. So I'm gonna speak with humility right now, and speak from what I know as a man. Not saying that I know everything, but I'm going to speak with humility and from what I've read.
We're going to focus on rabbinical Torah knowledge.
Correct.
No editorialism here.
So what was the woman's consequence? There were 3 consequences that God gave woman after eating from the tree of knowledge of good and bad. One was she was going to have a menstrual cycle.
Okay.
That means once a month.
Consequence.
How is that a consequence? Having a menstruation.
Right.
Okay. She was going to feel pain. Second, she was going to feel pain during childbirth.
Big one.
Big one.
Very big one. Big consequence.
Third, she was going to have pain at times in raising the children.
And that's probably more of a spiritual pain, not so much a physical pain.
A worry.
Oh, okay. Not necessarily spiritual pain, but like you're saying it will not be easy raising children.
Correct. It's called Sar Gidol Labanim. Sar means like anguish. Gidol Labanim, raising the children.
But why is that? Raising children is the
joy.
Is the joy, but it's also something that, that's a, I don't want to say burden, but that's a responsibility that both parents have, man and woman. So
correct.
Why is
and
it
I'm going to make a
woman?
generalization right now. This is a generalization which I'm about to make right
generalization?
now. I'm going to put a plug. Generalization, what I'm about to say right now.
By the Torah.
Generalization. When the 17-year-old boy or girl has a curfew and needs to be home at a specific time at night, and now both parents are up, it's now the curfew time, the kid is not home, dad is most likely going to pass out on the couch, and
mom is going
to be up a little bit more worried. Where's my child? Okay, I made a generalization.
I don't even think you have to necessarily make a generalization in saying that I do believe that there is a maternal connection that women have with their children. That's the thing that what you're talking. Okay, so it's not. So really, it doesn't. It's not. It doesn't actually matter who's more worried. That's not it. It's the inherent maternal connection that I think that women just have with their kids biologically, right? I mean, I'm sure, look, because you're right, it is a generalization. There are many fathers who are going to be the ones who are more worried, right? That's not like an inherent thing. But I do think that it's pretty safe to say that there is a maternal instinct that mothers have that makes them a little bit more closely connected with that child.
Correct.
No matter what.
Now,
throughout life.
Those were all 3. We explained the third one. What is a menstruation? Why is that considered a consequence? Because every month when the menstruation happens, there's a flow that leaves your body, and that was potential life that could have been.
Oh.
And for a woman, that creates an awareness that
another month without giving life.
Another month without giving life, and it also shows that I'm capable of giving life.
It's a reminder.
I'm capable of giving life.
An inescapable reminder
reminder that I was capable right now of giving life.
And I didn't.
Okay. So what does that do? It inherently grounds a woman.
Interesting.
What does pain during childbirth also?
It's pain.
That before the eating from the tree of knowledge of good and bad, there was no pain. It was
At
just
all? Physical
in
or
this area,
otherwise?
In this area.
In childbirth?
Correct.
There have been no children born before the eating of from the tree of the knowledge. And
there wasn't meant to be any pain in this area.
Got it. Closely documented fact that in the time between creation and eating from the tree,
there wasn't meant
if there had been kids born,
correct,
it would not have hurt.
There wouldn't have hurt.
So
what does this do?
Okay.
Creating the pain. It grounds her to this world.
Okay.
It makes her humble.
Okay. That one just seems malicious. Not malicious, but that one just seems...
Because
it's not just pain either. It's the worst pain.
It's the worst pain to say that I, in some ways, am also doing this. I'm trying to do this well.
Generalization
and again.
Right.
It means I have to be reliant on God to some degree, that he's going to get me through this.
Sure. It's kind of like it's like a cold plunge. Incredible discomfort that you have to have faith that you will overcome.
And in some degree, and this one is a dicey topic, which I'm about to say, I also kind of have to rely a little bit on my male counterpart.
Mm-hmm. To get her through the pain?
No. That I have to, in order to have children, I need a man. A little bit.
I mean...
and I need a man in order for this to happen.
We need something, yes.
And that grounds her to this world. Because what I've been taught is that a woman has such power, strength, capability, that she was inherently created, that she doesn't really need man nor God in this world. She is an environment.
She is the closest to God. She can create.
She is
create humans.
The most holy
right
being, that she doesn't need God nor a man to survive. She can do it on her own.
Which is why women can also pray at home. They don't necessarily have to go to shul,
correct,
right?
They are automatically closer to the source of God. So these three things, consequences, grounds her more to this world and humbles her with humility, that I need to rely on God
and my fellow man.
And I need to rely on my fellow man to help me have a child.
Look, I think the snake got away pretty good if all it lost was its legs and its arms and had to slither and stuff. Like, that's not that bad, considering. What are the consequences for man?
Okay, before I get into the consequence of man, I would just like to stay on this whole idea of women first. And then I'll get to the consequence of man, is that being that a woman can inherently take care of her own universe and does take care of her own universe, and she's extremely strong, powerful, mighty, courageous, incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Because now the way that God has now set up level 2, that now she has consequences. She is now somewhat reliant on man to give her what she needs or what she wants. And what is this that she needs and wants? A child. A child. If she can have a child on her own, she would rather do it on her own.
I'm sure that every woman would agree with that.
But she has to become somewhat humble and say, I need you, man, to be the man to implant your seed with me so we can have a child. Therefore, we're going to have to do a dance.
A partnership.
A partnership.
An exchange of energy.
An exchange of energy where for us to have children, you're going to have to be actively involved in this dance, in this partnership, in order for this whole be fruitful and multiply and get married thing will happen. Not necessarily married, but...
And marriage wasn't a thing then, right?
It wasn't a thing. But in order for us to cohabitate, I'm going to need to be somewhat reliant on you in order for this to work out. However, this could be another topic. What happens if the man is not living up to his partnership or his responsibility?
Dump him. I'm kidding. I mean, if the man isn't living up to his responsibility, then...
What will the woman feel?
Left behind. Unsupported.
Left behind, unsupported. Again, she would rather not have to rely on man, but she has to now rely on man. And what's going to end up happening is that she will start having feelings of despise.
Resentment.
I hate the fact that I need you
Yeah.
right now. I'd much rather do this on my own.
Right.
And I'm capable of doing this on my own. But in order for us to have children, I need you.
Yeah.
And that was her punishment. And what ends up happening is that if the man, she's in a relationship with this man, and the man doesn't follow through, inherently she's going to resent him. She's going to be angry at him. She's going to make his life a living hell because he's not living up to his responsibility to give her what she needs. Because you know what? A woman can do it on her own. And by the way, what will end up happening? She will do it on her own.
Right.
But she's not going to be very happy with the man.
Right.
She has to take on the role
of both
being a man and a woman.
Well, and I mean, look, I think it's starting to get a little bit amorphous as far as at which, like, are we talking about does she needs the man like anatomically because she needs a part of the man to create the child, or that she needs the man in the responsibility of raising and taking care of the child? Because is the idea here that she will resent him if he doesn't give her the things she needs to make the child?
Yes,
because she can't do it on her own if she doesn't have what she needs.
That's for sure the first part.
Yeah.
The second part, we live in 2025. There's
a lot of different ways to do it, yeah.
A lot of different ways to be a parent. A lot of different ways.
Well, the times are different.
However, though, if they have come into a relationship together where there's the traditional man and woman.
Look, I think it's safe to say, man or woman aside, in any relationship,
if they don't have their correct,
there needs to be a mutual support. I think man or woman, woman, man, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Correct.
In any partnership where two people are coming together for, I would
there
say,
needs to be a defined
love connection. There has to be responsibility shared by both people.
Correct.
Whether in child rearing or just in the relationship
if there's
as
a polarity,
right?
Where both each person in the relationship will say, "I'm strong in this. I'm good at this. I know that this is what I'm going to be bringing to the table." The other person is saying, I'm strong, good at this. I'm good at this. I'm strong at this. And ultimately, if those things are being breached, or there's an amorphosis or an androgyny, or there's not a clear border or boundary or communication on what our roles are in the relationship, then just in general, one of the partners in this cohabitation might start feeling resentment.
Well, and look, there is a reason why, in an evolutionary perspective, we search for a partner. I mean, other than the anatomical and physiological reason of we need both parts of a woman and the man to create a child, that's one thing. But we're also somehow coded whether we are looking for, this kind of partner or this kind of partner doesn't matter, or this gender doesn't matter. We are looking for another person to share.
Up, if we are, and by the way, again,
share some sort of responsibility.
It also says that we are, you've heard this concept, I have to find my soulmate.
Right.
So there's a concept in Judaism that we are only part soul. We are half of a soul.
That we have to find
and we have to find the other half to basically make the whole.
And then once you find that person, you must continue to share that responsibility and create. So, because I think the idea, and I understand why, you're treading lightly. It's a sensitive topic and all of that stuff. But I think that at the core of what you're saying, it's pretty safe to say that no matter who you're with, no matter who your partner is, there is a shared responsibility between the two people that has to be met.
Correct.
Right? So
I'm saying that from
the woman's
perspective, but I'm also saying that a woman, when coming down to the biological, anatomical standpoint, she has to rely on a man for that.
Yeah.
Whether or not she's.
But it's interesting that that's not specifically one of the consequences, because you said the consequences are menstruation, pain during childbirth, and pain during child rearing. But none of those consequences are.
The commentators go deeper into that and explain.
And they essentially say that those three things are the consequences are that the man has to be involved.
Correct.
But it's not specifically enumerated. It's not specifically it's interesting that the consequence isn't that God wasn't like, okay, now you need him to make a child, but you didn't before, but now you do.
And now you do, because again, we could see that a woman is strong enough, is capable enough, is powerful enough, is amazing enough that she can do it on her own. But for whatever reason, there now needed to be more of a humility, a groundingness to this world.
Interesting. Okay.
Now, the man's consequence.
I've been interested. I want to know what these are.
You are going to sweat at the tear of your brow, meaning like you're going to have to work for everything.
Okay.
In your life, and nothing is going to come easy.
Okay. That's it?
That's it.
One consequence.
But you have to work for everything. It used to be that you can just
live.
That food would just come.
Yeah.
You didn't have to plant it. You didn't have to thresh it. You didn't have to harvest it. You could just say, I want food, and here it is. Now I have to work by the sweat of my brow, meaning I have to put in effort in everything that I do. And nothing is going to come easy in life. And if you think things are going to come easy in life, it's not the case.
Another thing coming.
And you said this in the previous episode, is that, look, what's better? Is it better that we are now living in this version 2.0, or was it better if we stayed in version 1.0? My students ask me this all the time. Rabbi, it seems like it's so much better now that I'm living in version 2.0, where now I have the ability to overcome my body. I have the opportunity to overcome the basis side of who I am. And when I get to overcome that,
it feels good.
It feels good, and I'm fulfilled, and I have and I'm now a better person because I overcame. And in Hebrew, the term is called Yetzer Hara. Yetzer means inclination, hara for the bad. I overcame my inclination for the bad. Okay. So isn't it good now that I'm living in that constant state of version 2.0 where I get to now make a true free will decision and I get to overcome those hard times in my life? Or would it have been better off for me to just be holding God's hand front row and center at all time?
Well, I mean, we've talked about the contrast. You need the bad to know that it's good. It wouldn't feel fulfilling if your whole life was always fulfilled in every way. You know, if you were constantly, if all you ever knew was this ethereal, perfect, spiritual, transcendent closeness with God all the time, you wouldn't ever have the wherewithal to identify it as that and identify what a blessing it is to have that. It's almost as if the consequence helps you see the good of that. I mean, I'm just speaking to what you're saying.
Right.
When people are like, isn't it great that I know the difference?
So I'm blessed, thank God, with a 2.5-year-old, Adina Teller.
Mm-hmm.
Adina Teller is kind of like what you said, is like she runs around without a worry, woe in the world.
Right.
There's a constant smile on her face. She can walk around naked and not acknowledge that she's walking around naked. She sees the lens. She sees the world with a clear lens. There's no fogginess. There's no darkness.
It's just pure. Everyone's good. Everything is good.
Now, if I were to ask you the question, shouldn't we all stay in that state of purity? Shouldn't again, it would be a chaval, a pity, if somebody never grew up. But wouldn't it be amazing if even adults can still have that state of purity, that state of lack of jadedness?
No shame.
No shame. Just be complete pleasure of happiness, of joy, and just see the world for the beauty that it is. So,
yeah, I guess.
Yeah, we would all still want to be Adina Teller at 2.5 years old.
Yeah.
But what ends up happening? What ends up happening? The thing that ends up happening is called life. And what happens in
Conflict.
life? Conflict, consequences, disappointment. Disappointment is what jades humans. Disappointment is what the breaking of expectations. We all have a sense of how life is supposed to be.
So was that the consequence? Was that truly, I mean, the consequence for man is like you said, sweat on the brow. You have to work for everything, which means that you could be disappointed. It's almost like the consequence you are
going to be disappointed. Yeah. And what happens
because you got to work hard. Nothing's going to be easy.
Work.
Yeah.
You have to work.
Right.
You can add hard. You have to work.
No matter what.
And
that's not like work like physical labor. Like I have to work to make money, or I have to
toil
work.
Emotionally
it's constantly but that consequence seems like it's been but that consequence
happened the minute after we ate from the tree of knowledge of good and bad.
But here's the thing though, is that the consequence that the woman received doesn't really extend to the man. Maybe the pain of child rearing in some ways, extends to the man, right? But the consequence of having to work for everything also extends to the woman. The woman isn't, it's not like, if the consequence for man is, the sweat on the brow, you have to work for everything, emotional toil,
nothing
all
is
of that
going to come in life easy for you. It means
but nothing's going to come.
You have to rely.
But nothing is going to come easy for the woman either. So it's like that consequence affects her too. Because it's not like women don't have that. They have to work for everything as well.
Correct.
So that seems interesting, that the consequence for man seems to also affect the woman. Or at least that seems like a universal consequence of just being alive. I mean, I think the general parable of that story, the whole idea of the Adam and Eve story is, hey, once they ate from the tree of knowledge and of bad and good, the consequences that arose from that for the man and for the woman are just the consequences that humanity has received as a whole, not specifically tied to the gender, because now that's a problem of all people. Because the consequence that the woman faces are also a responsibility of man as well, and humanity. If she's going to feel pain during childbirth, that's a responsibility that the man has to be a part of and help with and all that stuff. So maybe what I'm trying to do is understand, because it seems somewhat not unfair, but it seems somewhat interesting that the consequence that man got, the one thing, is really a consequence for everyone.
And again, I don't know if this is the answer or not. And I'm treading lightly right now. So I'm
asking the hard question.
I'm putting that out there, and I appreciate the hard question.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the role of the man in a typical
to take that burden.
Brunt.
To say that if there are any hardships that befall you and your partner, in the historical traditional nature, it was the man's job to sort
Hunt,
through that
gather, correct,
and not put that on his wife. So the hope being that it fell on the man to handle all of the consequences of working hard for everything, so that
he can provide for
his partner, who now has these other consequences that they're busy taking care of.
Correct.
Okay.
So I'm operating in that more traditional.
But I also think that, I mean, yeah. Again, I think as much as, yes, we've evolved in our culture to understand gender roles differently, I do think that it's safe to say and argue that in a traditional sense, this is how it's explained in the Torah. And even now in 2025, there is some pieces of those things that are still at play. It's just a bit more expanded.
And yes, the rules
and
are
understood
differently,
and
the needs of humanity
have changed.
And therefore, in 2025, in order to survive, everybody is taking part in all of these roles. That maybe once upon a time it was clearly more of a man's role or a woman's role, but now there is
a greater division,
and requirement that everybody's participating in these roles. So to go back to this,
and are those three? So the snake, the man, and the woman are the ones who received consequences.
And then what happened is that then they were expelled from the garden.
Were they the only living things in that garden?
No. There was also animals. It was the role.
Did they get any consequences?
No.
Well, they weren't involved.
They weren't involved.
So animals are devoid of consequences from that sin. Would we call that a sin when it
was called the original sin.
The original. It is the original sin.
Missing of the mark, where we could have, and ultimately, again, as I said, we then, over time, have been trying to course correct this. There have been times in history where we could have gotten back to that state of being in the garden, or what it was like being in the garden. Yes. There was, when the Jewish people, we received the Torah from Mount Sinai.
Yeah.
And the Ten Commandments. And then Moses went up to the top of Mount Sinai for another 40 days and 40 nights and was going to receive the rest of the entire Torah. We were on a very we went from being enslaved in Egypt for 210 years. There were 10 plagues.
Yeah, right. Passover.
We were kicked out of the land of Egypt. We escaped from the land of Egypt. There was a sea splitting. Yeah. We walked through the sea.
Ah, yes, the sea. Those casual sea splittings.
Always
happening.
I'm just saying it so matter-of-factly right now because
we know where the sea parted. Yeah.
And then 50 days after the Exodus of leaving Egypt, we then received the Ten Commandments, which in fact we are approaching that holiday right now, and it's called Shavuot, and that will be in another 18 days.
Okay, 18.
Chai. And we then will receive the Ten Commandments on Shavuot, and then after Shavuot, after receiving the Ten Commandments, Moses went back up to the mountain to receive the rest of the Torah.
Okay.
And he was supposed to come down with the rest of the Torah after 40 days and 40 nights. The Jewish people miscalculated of when Moses was going to come down. They were off by 12 hours.
Okay.
And what ended up happening is that the Jews, after now receiving the Ten Commandments and on being such a high, elevated state of being, ended up creating a golden calf, which is a form of idol worship.
12 hours.
And
so had they not created the golden calf, we'd be back to the garden.
Correct.
Man, what a near miss. Whose idea was this? Was it one person?
No, it was a group of people.
A group of people were like, hey, you know what we need? We need a nice statue, a little trinket.
And that's what happens. So we forget, we're short on memory, and basically what ended up happening from that is that we have now been living in the state, going back to our ideas of that we are a body, a Yetzer Hara, an evil inclination. We are a soul. a yetzer hatov, an inclination for the good.
Wait, so Moses was up there waiting for, not waiting. He was working.
Redacting, getting all the Torah.
Right.
Came down, saw that the Jews were worshiping a golden calf, took the
full Torah,
smashed it on the ground, kaput.
Moses.
He's like, guys, you're so impetuous.
Why you do this?
You're so impervious. Couldn't you just be patient?
Look, I'd also be pissed. I'm up there for 40 days. I'm doing the Lord's work, literally. And then I come down and you guys are doing some golden calf business. Come on. I've been working so hard. Come on.
I've been there for you. I got you out of the land of Egypt, and now you're going to do this? You got the Ten Commandments. You witnessed God speaking to you himself. And
Why a calf? Why the cow? I feel like I should know this.
Yeah. It's... We'll look into that a little bit more.
There's a group of folks who are like, I don't know about this Moses fella. Now, cows, they've got the right idea.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll have to look into that.
Look into that.
Future episode, why the golden calf?
Why the golden calf? So now that is where we are in the story. And the initial question was, what happens to our body and our soul after 120 years on this planet? So we've had about 80 minutes worth of lead up to our actual initial question. Hopefully,
I actually think that what we should do is not address it yet again, continue talking about gender differences, and save that for a whole nother episode. Now, hit me with it. What is it? Let's see if we can wrap this thing up in 10 minutes.
Yes.
So of that.
So we die. We die. Our bodies leave this world, or our bodies stop working. It is believed that our souls are going to go to an afterlife.
Oh, okay.
An afterlife. And the afterlife is called Olam, which means world, Haba, the world to come. Our souls are going to go back to this, if you want to call it this holding tank, where souls get to hang out for some time.
Is there a consciousness in this holding tank? Do the souls retain their consciousness?
Yes. So when we die, people have asked us, is there a view of heaven and hell?
I've heard that there's no heaven and
Olam
hell.
Haba is where our souls go. Our bodies need to get buried.
Decompose.
And they get decomposed. So once the body gets buried, there's a concept for 11 months. Our souls need to go through a cleansing period. If you want to call it purgatory.
Okay.
Or in Hebrew, it's called Gehinom, which means Gehenna. It goes to an 11-month purification process. The soul needs to be purified of all the stuff that
the body
did wrong to your soul in this world, Olam Hazeh, in this world. Your soul needs to now cleanse itself of everything that happened while your body was here with its soul in this world. So what is the Jewish version of hell? This is what the Jewish version of hell is. To
never escape that purgatory?
The Jewish version of hell is that 2 movies are going to be playing concurrently. One movie is what actually took place, and one is what could have happened and what you could have done differently.
Oh man, I know what you mean. It's like facing your hell is the idea of facing what you could have become at your most purest form.
But instead you chose,
noticing the difference.
But instead you chose your body over that opportunity to truly elevate.
Ugh, that is hell.
That is hell.
That is. And also what a concept. What an idea that like that the worst thing that you can experience is to be confronted with what you could have been.
So our body needs to go through 11 months of that. Wow. Soul.
So everyone goes through hell to get to heaven, in a way?
Everybody has to go through that process. And there is something that is done in this world, which is very important.
To help
your soul
be Kaddish. The mourner's Kaddish.
For 11 months. Your kin in this world will say Kaddish, which is a Jewish prayer 3 times a day, which will hopefully let the soul know we're gonna here on this planet make this process of your soul being cleansed easier for you.
But you're saying that in the Jewish faith, we believe that soul has a consciousness, that soul, you die, but the soul
lives for eternity.
Yeah, right, lives for eternity. But do we believe that it knows it's still living? Like, does that? I'm just trying to understand.
No, the soul knows that you have been taken from this world.
The soul knows that.
Yeah.
But does it experience a consciousness in the sense? Like, is it somewhere? Does it recognize that it's going through this 11-month process?
Yes.
So after I die, I will continue to, for lack of a better term, think. Like I will have.
Yes. And in fact,
and I'll be able to see my ancestors and stuff.
Yes. It says that when the soul departs from the body, it's a hard process. Because the soul doesn't want to leave this world, because the soul still wants to do mitzvot.
Yeah.
The soul still wants to do acts. A mitzvah is an opportunity to get closer to God, because there's a level of pleasure that the soul received in this world when it does a mitzvah to get closer to God. A soul cannot do mitzvot anymore. And in fact, when we go to a cemetery, a Jewish cemetery, I wear these fringes called tzitzit. I'm not allowed to let my tzitzit. There are a lot of people that leave these fringes outside. I happen to tuck them in. But if you were to go to a cemetery, a family member can't have them hanging by their wayside going to a cemetery.
Why?
Because that is a slap in the face, quote unquote, to the soul who can't do mitzvot anymore.
Because it's a mitzvah to wear the tzitzit?
And they don't have the opportunity to do the mitzvah anymore. So we don't want to embarrass the soul.
So where do the souls all live? Where do they all exist? Do they all?
So we...
Because there's so many people that have passed away, and those souls have to be somewhere.
Again, not treading lightly.
Yeah.
Treading lightly, and not to be political or make anybody uncomfortable. But in Judaism, we believe that the body needs to go back into the world, into the earth, the same way that it came, whole.
Okay.
So that means we believe in Judaism that a Jewish burial is one of the biggest mitzvahs that you can do, the biggest opportunity to connect to God as possible. Meaning, you came in whole into this world from your mother, you're going to go back into this world in whole. Meaning, we look at this body as a loner. It's not really our body. Meaning, I'm not free to do what I want to do to this body. Even though you might say it's my body, I can do whatever I want. In the world of religion and God and spirituality, God gave you this body to use it to connect to mitzvot, not to do whatever you want, however you want, whenever you want, because you think it's yours. So, meaning that it's considered a very bad thing in Jewish religion to be cremated, to willingly choose to be cremated, because cremation is a process of...
But do the souls... We don't have anything in Judaism where the souls can go and find another body,
Hold on.
Do we?
I'm not... This might have to be...
A whole nother episode.
episode. But we believe to this point is that cremation is a bad thing.
What about like organ donation? Same thing.
Organ
right?
donation, also not a good thing. And because you need your organs to some degree. So, but there are Jews, by the way, religious Jews have donated a kidney. That's okay, because you can still survive off of one kidney. You can donate blood because you replenish blood.
Oh.
But you can't donate.
But once you're not using your body, why do you need the organs?
Because we're at 45 minutes right now, and there is a much deeper concept, which I'm about to say. So what really happens after we die, and what do we believe is going to happen in the end of days, life after death? And maybe we'll combine that.
Ooh, interesting.
End of days, life after death. And we're leaving on a teaser right now of why it's not, that our bodies need to come back into the world the way that we brought them into the world. And we might talk about, you asked a question just now.
Where do
there's this where do the souls go? And there's an idea that, by the way, there's what's called a Gilgul, which means a rolling over. Souls might have come into multiple bodies over the course.
Reincarnation?
Yes.
Wow.
So I will talk about that. We will talk about that next time. Okay.
Now we're getting somewhere. Reincarnation.
We'll talk about that.
Interesting. And I'm wonder, man, I'm curious, because that's an interesting concept, and like whether or not certain souls travel together through certain bodies over time.
So I think it would behoove us to pick this up next time.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
right now there's too much.
There's so much to unpack there. But I mean, I think in this episode we really covered, I think honestly, as I kind of think back and sort of summarize sort of what we really went through here, it feels like it was kind of more of a digging into the consequences of the expulsion from the Garden of Eden and how that relates to death and how it relates to life, potentially, more importantly. Because there's definitely, it's very interesting how the consequences are sort of split between, those three entities. And I also asked a question.
When the man chose and the woman chose to actively participate in choosing their body over their soul.
Let me ask this as a final question, because I think we briefly touched on this. So you said that there were other living things in the Garden of Eden when this happened, but the three things that received consequences are the snake, the man, and the woman. What about all the other living animals? I mean, are they completely free of consequence? Do they live a completely, is a deer or a dog or a cat entirely like spiritually
so again, there's
raised beings?
There are 5 levels of a soul. And this is a whole class.
Okay.
But we believe that animals have a lower level of a soul. So it's very sad for us when a pet passes away. But do we have to say Kaddish for the dog that passes away?
No. I mean, not by religious standards.
Not by religious standards. So it to some degree, we are held, not to sound more pretentious, but our soul is held on a higher level than other
But
mammals.
Snakes fall into that too, even though it received a consequence.
Correct.
Only because the snake was the...
Correct. Active participant, but animals.
So all the other animals
are not held to it. The other animals are not held to as high of a.
But that doesn't mean that the snake has. That doesn't mean that the snake is held to that higher level of soul and consciousness, right? No. Like we wouldn't say. I mean, we wouldn't say Kaddish for a snake either.
No, we wouldn't.
But the snake received a consequence because it was the bad guy.
Correct. But for next time.
Don't be a snake.
Don't be a snake.
Don't be a snake.
Don't be a wily, slithery,
slithery snake. Oh my! I still can't get over the idea of a walking snake. I've never even seen that depicted anywhere. Are there pictures of that in like old text or anything like that?
I'm sure there is.
I've never seen a snake with legs.
But if you read the commentaries on,
it's the crocodile.
It is. Yeah.
A leggy snake.
Or a kimono dragon.
Other lizards. Anyway, before we get too far into reptilian subspecies, thank you so much.
This was awesome. Thank
what
you
a
for
great
coming.
show and teller. Here we are.
Time.
Follow us on Instagram and YouTube. Subscribe, comment, like, all of the things. We've got tons of episodes coming your way, all kinds of content. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right.
So how would you...